Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guests today are Lakshmi Ashok, the CTO for Homeland and Critical Infrastructure at Unisys Federal. David Levy is Vice President, U.S. Government at Amazon Web Services. And Peter O'Donohue, Vice President of Application Services at Unisys Federal. And let's start with the first basic question. If there wasn't a mandate, probably federal agencies would be moving some of their computing workloads to the cloud anyway. But what are the reasons they're actually doing it? Dave, why don't we start with you?
I think if you look at agencies and really enterprises all over the world that are moving to cloud, usually the conversation starter is cost. I mean, cloud allows you to move what is traditionally a capital expense into variable expense. And so there's a lot of flexibility in that. But I think what we've seen is that agencies and big enterprises are moving for things like agility. You can spin up thousands and thousands of resources when you need them, as you consume them. And then you can have a lot of flexibility in that. And so you're seeing agencies start to realize the flexibility that this on-demand compute allows. And then I think you'll also see that the commercial cloud providers, AWS included, are delivering a lot of innovation around services. Serverless computing, the ability to have security through APIs. So the cloud is giving agencies flexibility that they haven't had before.
So it's not just moving a workload from point A to point B, it's fundamentally changing the workload.
Right.
Okay, and Peter, what about some of the innovative requirements that agencies have, modernizing and stuff? Does this get enhanced also with cloud adoption?
Absolutely. So actually the way I think about why agencies move to the cloud is actually to boil everything down and simplify it. I look at it as cloud as an opportunity to rethink service delivery for all of IT. And actually the metaphor I think of is it's an opportunity to ditch the friction. So if you want to meet your warfighters' needs, you want to meet the needs of your citizens and other stakeholders, if you think of how you had to think through building an application or a website, say 20, 30 years ago, and to be able to get it into production and scale, and actually also deal with some of the agencies related to kind of like the huge kind of like demand, the peak demand versus low demand. For me to deliver value quickly, the cloud absolutely is a way to ditch friction and also get access to really creative, innovative things in terms of how you design and build your applications, how you can build mobile solutions, and frankly, how you can tap into your data and make better mission decisions more effectively.
All right, and Lakshmi, your title has Homeland and Critical Infrastructure, so that brings to mind the security needs, and that's always a moving target, but are we kind of pretty much past the idea that cloud is insecure?
I think we're pretty much past the idea. Cloud is perhaps the most secure environment that you can, but how you deploy into cloud is what we need to be considerate about from a security perspective. Resiliency would be one of my top reasons for cloud adoption in the federal government. So, there's a shrinking data center footprint. There is attack vectors from everywhere, and cloud intrinsically provides limited surface area for those attack vectors, for example. There's also what Peter was talking about earlier, speed to mission value, right? So with the ever-changing policies of the government that we need to react to quickly, or let's say even in the health sector, if there's a new strain of flu virus that we need to react to quickly and develop antibodies for, why not use the cloud to compute? That makes it much better.
Agility almost in the programmatic sense as opposed into the software development sense.
Exactly. Yep.
All right, and you see a lot of big acquisitions going on, some recompetes in DoD and the civilian agencies, and sometimes we say, well, defense is going to buy this or education is going to buy that. But really, we need to get a sense of who it is. Who constitutes the teams, the stakeholders in this whole cloud acquisition process? Peter?
Well, right, so, there's a few different ways to look at who the key stakeholders are. I think there's some personalities that we found have kind of bubbled up that we tend to have similar types of conversations around. Like one group of customers, our clients that we see are folks who really they sit at the executive level. They're responsible for driving costs down. They're responsible for compliance. They're responsible for security, and they favor stability And actually, data center operators and owners tend to report into that function. And actually, a lot of those folks look at cloud as a bit of a threat. And we find the conversations that are most important with those folks is helping them kind of understand their roles in the future. And we've seen lots of great examples where, with some training and kind of reorientation, some of the most successful folks in terms of running workloads resiliently, securely in the cloud are those folks. Then we've got other personalities like the security folks tend to want to know, okay, I need to move away from kind of a perimeter-based security posture. I need to kind of rethink my strategy in the cloud. We see chief data officers, and this is actually something we probably undersell in terms of moving to the cloud, is as we move our data to the cloud, a lot of what has been traditionally siloed actually becomes available for, say, interrogation and leverage and opportunities to run analytics and make decisions across what was formerly a set of siloed data sources. It becomes open. And the last group is folks who are at the mission edge. So folks who are really invested in making sure mission critical problems are solved more effectively. Like in our case, we've seen, to be able to turn over a weekend and deliver a new analytics solution so I can make mission critical decisions more effectively. Those types of organizations want to really achieve, I look at those as wanting to achieve digital transformation with cloud adoption. Those two stories tend to kind of go hand in hand.
And Dave, is that how it looks? You have a whole team from a federal agency or department coming in and talking to your folks?
Yeah, we do. It's a very varied set of group. I think what you can, we see a lot of leaders at the very top of agencies starting to realize that these are the sorts of capabilities that can really transform the agency, to Peter's point about whether it's digital transformation or wanting to transform on the edge. So that leadership really is driving the conversation in these agencies and their need to look at problem sets, whether it's citizen services or war fighting or another capability in a different way. And so all of those stakeholders are coming to the table and having the conversation with us.
And Lakshmi, the word cloud really refers to not one thing, but a whole ecosystem of providers. Mm-hmm. And so do you find that it's the best practice to have a single cloud provider in the commercial, or what are your customers looking for?
What a question to ask, right? So really, for me, when I look at the customer base, most of them are consistently adopting a diverse environment for cloud. So, diverse environment for their infrastructure. So, most of the federal government has already started moving out to Office 365, for example, for their email. Then they use other providers for CRM. And yet, there's 2 or 3 major cloud providers that they're looking at for infrastructure in addition to their data center. Because let's face it, with the federal government, I think a vast majority of workloads are still sitting in their data center. And so one of the things that we have to, as SIs, carefully balance is how do we operate across that diverse environment. At the same time, we've seen nowadays solicitations that have come out for a single cloud provider. And there we tend to go in with cloud native services as our solution, geared towards that particular provider. So considerations to take really is vendor lock-in is a word I've heard a lot with the clients, and they're averse to vendor lock-in. But at the same time, as we take a more diversified portfolio, a view of adopting other clouds, complexity sets in. So complexity in financial governance, complexity in monitoring, for example. How do you secure the environment? So these are some of the considerations we need to take in while we're looking at either a single cloud approach or a diversified environment approach.
Okay, a lot to think about. On that note, we'll take a short break. This is Voices of Government IT, Achieving Enterprise-Wide Cloud Adoption, sponsored by Unisys, here on Federal News Radio, part of the Federal News Network.